okay? So at the end of the year, if somebody wanted to file a petition to get out of the liquor business, you have a petition under 35 323, and the sole issue would be, should your on-sale liquor license be renewed? Should your off-sale liquor license be renewed? Okay, and if you had a petition, would be the two things that would be on the ballot, and someone said you as a city should get out of the on and off-sale liquor business. Now, if that was presented and it passed, it's my opinion that you have no liquor licenses in town. You have no ability to sell liquor in town because you're dry, because you've never passed the first issue in 3537. You never had an election to say under 35310. May alcoholic beverages, except malt beverages, be sold within the municipality by on-sale dealers. You had the election that the city could do it, but you've never had an election. If the city gets out of the business, as somebody else does, so you're going to be dry just like Viborg was, and you're going to be dry just like Wessington Springs was before that election was passed. Okay? So right now, city, we are able to have on-sale and off-sale establishments in the city of Canton, and you do them through operating agreements where the city charges a 10% markup, and it also does 5% on beer. All right? And there is a fee in each of the licenses, an annual fee, and I can't tell you what it is under the license, but I know we charge a fee. Okay, so state law, if you said we're not doing this anymore, an election passed, and you're sitting there and there are no liquor licenses because the city owns all the liquor licenses and owns or uses operating agreements to allow sales in the city. You with me so far? Mm-hmm. Okay. So one of the things if you're going to get out of the business and you don't want to be dry, you're going to have a second election authorizing you guys, for the lack of a better word, to be wet. Okay. And there are other options out there, and one is the city of Pierre. And what the city of Pierre does is it says, and I'll use Dakota Mart as an example, and it's the one that I've looked at, but I believe the ones in Pierre that have on-sale liquor are Walmart, and then there's off-sale, have off-sale is Dakota Mart and Walmart, and then there's a liquor store on the Miracle Mile, Sioux, I think. And Dakota Mart charges $10,000 a year plus 5% of the retail sale of spirits that go out through their liquor store. Same thing would be up in Walmart, and then also down to the liquor store in Sioux.
That's what they get charged.
Say again?
That's what Dakota Mart gets charged?
Yes.
That's what Dakota Mart has agreed to pay. Within that same contract, it also says that Dakota Mart is going to be responsible for the invoicing, receipt, and payment of all of the liquor invoices that come in, that they will report to the city at least on a quarterly basis, that the city can audit them, and that they'll show them the books to show what they owe for the 5% markup on their gross retail sales. Now, your markup is on invoices, but that's not sale at the store. That's basically your invoice is a 10% markup for cost. So I think when you look at operating agreements, you guys can do anything you want other than sell liquor below cost. All liquor, I'm gonna turn to the expert here, all liquor in the state must be sold at the same price to everybody on a case a lot basis. You may charge a little bit more if you're delivering less than a case, but transportation charges.
Split case charge,
And then there are transportation charges on top of that.
correct?
But if you are buying a bottle of gin for $20, whatever it is, that's what you're gonna pay in Canton. That's what you're gonna pay in Sioux Falls. That's what you're gonna pay in Rapid City, other than the transportation charge and potentially the case charge.
And our local 10%.
Well,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just gonna turn my mic on so people can actually hear. So the distributors bill us. We turn around and then bill, whether it's Noid's or whomever, when they buy through us, then we bill them our charge plus a 10% markup if it's liquor and 5% if it's beer.
And I think it's fair to say that your invoices are due 30 days after delivery rather than immediately upon delivery, which is or is not, it's something that's advantageous to the local business person.
Yeah, and yeah, we bill at the end of the month and they have about 30 days. There's about a 45 to 60 day lag in that.
Okay. So again, back to the Dakota Mart one, they pay for everything. Plus they pay a licensing fee. Plus they pay a percentage that they've agreed on. And I think it does the same thing throughout the city. All right, so let's just assume that election were held and you guys are out of the business. All right. And state law says that in Canton, you can have up to 5 on sale, on or off, okay? And that on one of those licenses, there's a maximum renewal fee of $1,500, which I think is the on sale, and then there's a maximum on the off sale of $500. But there's no floor on the initial charge. So if I'll use Dakota Mart here as if we're in Canton, South Dakota, you could say, even though the statute says we have to charge $1 per resident of the city, our charge for off-sale liquor sales in the city of Canton at Dakota Mart is $25,000. You could say it's $50,000. You could say it is $300, which I believe is the minimum.
3,000.
$3,000. Okay. Do anything in between. All right. So your issues beyond that are you have operating agreements, and if a petition is presented, I believe that your operating agreement says you can get out of the thing in 90 days. Okay. And let's just say we coordinate everything and the election comes up at the 90 days and our operating agreements are just done. And, irregardless of argument that maybe this be done as a matter of law because it's impossible for you to continue to have a license, but you're done with the business. And then the city council not only is going to determine the fee that you're going to charge for an on or off sale, but you're going to determine how many licenses there are. You could say we're having 1 on sale, and you could say we're having 1 off sale. You could go up to the 5 in each, or you can go anywhere in between. Someone that has an operating agreement and comes in now and says, well, am I grandfathered in? Larry Nelson's going to say, I don't think so. You're grandfathered in under your operating agreement, but that's gone now. And now we're going to have to figure out, A, are we going to have liquor sales in the city? And then B, what is the fair way for us to award those licenses, all right? And under the code, it says that the person to have a liquor license has to be a suitable person in a suitable location. All right, now, everybody that is operating under operating agreements, I think the city has already said suitable person, suitable location, okay? But what if someone comes in and says, I always wanted to open this beautiful building that I have and have a a liquor license there, and rather than being open 3 or 4 days, I'm gonna operate every day, and I'm gonna, do these wonderful things with it. I'm gonna build this restaurant, and I'll get back to the restaurant license in a minute. You could say, well, God, that's a big deal for getting us better than what we're doing now. I mean, let's give these people a shot. But my point is that the people that have existing licenses can come in and say, we're suitable person, suitable location, but there's no guarantee that they would get a license. No guarantee that they wouldn't. You guys could say, yeah, they were great, let's just give it to them, but they don't have a claim to a new license that comes out. And they don't have a claim to say, that's not fair, we used to have 5 licenses, and now the city says we're gonna have 2. That's what the city can do. And they don't have much of a claim, even though under the operating agreement we paid, and I'm making this up, $1,000, and now you're gonna pay me 10. That's not fair. Those operating agreements are gone. We had an election that threw those out. Okay? So it's a little more complicated on what happens if you get out of the liquor business as a city running a municipal, liquor store on and off sale. Now, Vermillion has a liquor store, but doesn't have on sale liquor. Brookings, I believe, has on and off and does the markup. Brookings is the largest municipal liquor store in the state, and that just does the most. I think the last number I looked at 10 years ago was about 1.2 million, and I can't imagine what it would be now. Okay. So that's kind of just a brush of what I see issues are. I'd be happy to answer any questions for the commission.
Did you say election, general election in the community or left up to us?
No,
Be a
there's
special election.
there's a petition process where there has to be 15% of the voters that voted in the last mayoral election, because we have a mayor, and then you have to have an election. And again, there are 3 things you can have it on. One is that the city not renew its licenses, then you guys are out of the business. 2 is, are you going to be a wet or a dry town? You're going to authorize liquor sales in town. And the third thing is you can go dry. We're not having fun.
So does Sioux Valley Grill, do they have,
Restaurant license.
is that falls under the restaurant
Well,
license?
they have a restaurant license, okay? The long answer that you don't want to hear, but just bear with me. You can get an on-sale liquor license down in Sioux City for $1,500. I think it's $1,800 in Nebraska. It's about $10,500 in Minnesota. And in Sioux Falls, you're going to pay $400,000 for an on-sale liquor license. Okay, that's because we have a secondary market in on-sale licenses. To get rid of that secondary market, make things happen, the municipal league and others created the restaurant license, where the license has to be at least $1,000 per resident, and then you can have a restaurant license like Sioux Valley Grill has, as long as, I think they have to derive 50% of their 51. Okay, and it's over 50% of their taxable gross from something other than the sale of alcohol. So if we got out of the business, the city gets out of the business of on and off sale, well, the only way that place is able to operate is by us giving them a license through the existing licenses that we have now. It's not clear to me if it's going to impact them or not, if we could just still hand out licenses once we got out of the business. Remember, we can do suitable person, suitable location. My guess is that we probably could.
If the community were to vote to authorize alcohol or liquor.
Yes. To not authorize it?
No, to authorize it.
I think we might be able to Well, no, we have to have the authorization to have liquor in town first as the first stepping stone to then getting to the other issues. So if we don't, if the election did not allow the city to have their liquor licenses in town, they couldn't have one.
What does happen with beer in the meantime?
Beer is safe harbor. You'll be able to continue to sell beer. It's vibrant. You could go through, you could get a glass of beer, but you couldn't get a whiskey cold. That's where everybody went out. What was the name of the place? Swan Lake Tavern? What's it called?
Shore Store.
Shore Store, thank you.
So just so I'm understanding correctly, if we turned it over and it went to an election and people voted to have it, Sioux Valley Grill would be part of the 5 places that we could give a license to. Or they would be,
They'd still be eligible for a restaurant license,
okay,
but
that's,
but in the meantime, they would be in the same gray area as everybody else.
okay, until they got a restaurant license, okay.
And it wouldn't be our decision, it would be, they would have to get a petition.
I think to make you be a wet city, you gotta have an election, and the election you had would have been solely, is the city gonna run the liquor store? And is the city, off sale and on sale? And that was the second one under 7, the second sentence under 7, and actually the election would be under 323. And that would be the election you'd have. It would be the city, shall the city renew or not renew those 2 licenses.
So both elections, whether to stay in the business or not, and or to be a wet city, both are initiated by the people. Neither one of them do you guys instigate.
And I'm telling you my opinion that someone would have to initiate a petition to have us be able to sell alcohol, because I don't want someone later on saying, why do you say that? Because that's what I think it's going to require.
2 elections.
Well, yeah, it's going to require 2 separate petitions. One to get out of the business, one to get in the business. And of course, the liquor license, just, on sale liquor in town, whether the town is wet, if it's disapproved, you don't have anything. And if an election goes down, you can't bring it for another year. So you just can't go, oops, we were 4 votes short, now we're gonna run it again next month. No, there's a year waiting period. So, again, what happened statewide, when we voted on prohibition in the legislature, I don't think there were any dissenting votes. There was one election when we voted to start offering liquor licenses again, and I think it was 125 to 130, 125,000 wanted, 130 didn't. So I'm just telling you, it's a 50-50 toss up in most cities. So,
Larry, so let's say the city votes to repeal the municipal system. We haven't yet voted to allow private liquor sales. Can I pick on you for a second? You got, how many video lottery machines do you have?
20.
So 10 of them are backed up by a malt beverage and 10 of them are backed up by a liquor?
Yes, we could have 10 more with the one.
So he could, in that medium time, malt beverage is still good
Only for 10 machines.
for 10 machines. Is he having to shut off half of his machines?
I think the only thing that continues to be good is the malt beverage.
And yeah, because every 10 machines are tied to some license.
Because on all of those questions you had on alcohol, it said other than malt beverage. You may have seen that. It just says other than malt beverage.
I also think there's a state law that says you're only entitled, if we're starting from scratch, you're entitled to 1 license for every 1,500 people, but we were grandfathered in. Now that starts over, we can have 2 licenses. 3 people are out of business.
It says something like this. In fact, let me
I
give you
think you're allowed 3 for the first
the.
1,200 and then 1 for 1,500 thereafter.
Okay, so now we're still, somebody's out of business. Right?
I mapped it out and I felt like we were in a safe area for the number of licenses. Under that same statute, I was relying on one word or a couple words that says or fraction thereof. And so you entered your next fraction thereof of 1,500 more people. And
So the number for off sale is, let's see, this chapter. Maybe issue of this chapter. 1 license for every 2 for the first 1,000 and then 1 for each additional 1,500. The other license
That's 4 at the most.
is 3 for the first 1,000 and then 1 for each 1,500 after that.
On sale is what we're allowed 5,
Yeah.
off sale 4.
Now, there's language in the code that talks about licenses being grandfathered in, but nobody in this town has a license except you guys. They all have operating agreements.
What about,
You'd start over.
the grocery store? I mean, they sell
That's all.
both, so where do they fall?
to
Well, they
be
sell-
selling beer.
They're gonna have an off-sale retail license.
So they fall into a different category?
And their off-sale retail license is just like Casey's, just like the other gas station, and just like Bushwhackers.
Dollar General.
Oh, no, they're just beer and wine, I think. Those 4, you can go in and get a bottle of Jack Daniels. You can get cider, you can get wine, you can get beer. Yeah, you can get all those. Then we have, special licenses where you can get a beer and wine license, and then we have a beer and a farm wine license. And this chapter 35(3) doesn't talk about any of those licenses. But I suppose that the grocery store could come in and say, I'd like to get a beer license, and would be able to continue to sell beer because that is not alcoholic beverages subject to this election. The other ones, I'm not sure on. But they're gonna be able to sell beer for sure. But if they want to sell Jack Daniels and there's not been an election authorizing the sale of spirits in town, you guys are for all intents and purposes dry other than beer. Now, if you had that election and it passed, well, glory days, we're back to business, the way we are, and all we gotta do is figure out who gets the licenses. But if it fails, I don't know what happens.
Somebody in the community has to bring this petition forward.
I don't believe that the city has the ability to bring the petition. Well, you guys, of course, have the ability to get factual information out about it. You're not supposed to take positions, but you could say, well, gosh, I'm making numbers up, okay? What we do now, it brings in $100,000, we use that for the ballpark and the pool or whatever we use it for, and we'd like to keep that. You can, I guess you can tell them what it pays for, and then that's probably about as far as you can go. You give them the history, why it was. And
what the next steps, and what next steps would be.
well, okay, so if someone's gonna bring a petition for you guys not to renew your license, I would suggest we sit down and try to come up with a roadmap that's gonna end up answering our other question. If that election is successful and you don't have on-sale liquor in town now, well, you haven't accomplished much. In fact, you've accomplished nothing. If the goal was to get rid of the markup that the city has. So we ought to probably all sit down, and talk about it. And this is stuff I'm making up, okay? The city council just hates this idea and they bring the petition anyway. I bet you that the liquor license, that initial out of the box charge for an on-sale and off-sale liquor license is probably gonna be pretty high. We were against this and you brought it anyway, and hell, now we're gonna set that at $25,000. All right, that's the way it could go. Or you could say, we told you we didn't think this was a good idea, and under the statute, we're only gonna have one on-sale liquor license and one off-sale. That's your power under the statute to say the number that you're gonna have. Not telling you you're gonna do that, but you guys have some skin in the game in addition to the money that it generates.
Not to mention that a city election is gonna cost the taxpayers money.
But if you're gonna move forward, we need to sit down and figure out how you're gonna keep on-sale liquor, okay? I know there's some bar owners and folks, do you guys have questions on on-sale? If you disagree with the statute after you've read them, I'm asking you to come and talk to me. I'd like to hear what your interpretation on it is. You too. And I appreciate you pointing out the number of licenses.
So now we're doing 10% on hard liquor and 5% on beer. What is that total dollar of cost like in 2024? How many dollars did we have in sales?
I recall it was 110,000
110,000 was
revenue.
Net?
Was net. I think we gained between 100 and 110,000 the markups give us a year, give or take, depending upon the year. I'm trying to remember if it was,
You don't know what came from liquor versus beer.
not off the top of my head.
We would need to know that split in order to tell you
So
sales.
now that's on cost side. Now
Can't hear you.
Go to the retail side. Do we
Can't hear him. He doesn't have his microphone.
Oh,
that was on the cost side. We're generating $110,000 roughly. Now on the retail side, is there a bed booze and tax?
There's a three, yes,
What percent is that?
1,
Can that be adjusted?
no.
No.
That's set by the state.
But to that end, like Larry mentioned with the peer system, the operating agreements, we can negotiate the operating agreements to, rather than be charging on the front end, we could charge on the back end and make it feel more like a bed, board, and booze. We just renewed for the year, so you can renegotiate anytime, but it's not, a whole open window until a year from now.
Malt beverage, liquor licenses will come up in October, November.
Okay.
Malt beverage is
That's
July
what
1
we
to
do.
June 30th.
Okay.
Liquor is January to December.
Could you bifurcate it? On sale, off sale?
Well, that's an interesting question, and our city administrator asked me that today. When you look at that statute, it talks about the elections that you can have, and one is to have the on and off sale with a community liquor license, and then the other one was when you get rid of those, it provides that you're gonna have both of those on the ballot. Now, for ballot purposes, you gotta have both of them on it. And the statute doesn't address, well, what if they go one way on the on sale and one on the off sale? At that point in time, I'd be saying to a judge, well, guess what? They split it. They want to have, like Vermillion has. Vermillion has the off sale liquor license, but has on sale for booze. Pier has, all of their on sale are not under the city. And so I think they could, but if you came to me and said, I just want to have an election on one, I'd tell you no, you gotta have it on both. And Doug, what I'm referring to are, this is the form of the ballot, so you have to have two. Or they both have to be on that ballot, but it could go different ways.
It sounds like even in the best case scenario, people are gonna be out of business for a while.
Yes, again, I believe that you have not had an election saying whether or not you're wet or dry.
It looks like it'd be minimum 90 days up to a year that you'd be out of business. We would have no on or off sale in town.
So from the people that want to get you out of the business, it would be nice if you had the election on the same day.
Oh, well,
You know,
we were, I misunderstood then. I thought you had to have separate,
they have to be separate ballots.
but you could have it on the same
You
day.
could have, I think you could have it on the same day.
And that could be split, and that'd be a mess.
No, but the
Right,
other,
I mean, they could vote to get us out of the, yeah.
That'd be a mess
the other thing is, I
if it
think,
wasn't understood.
I think we have a 30-day out. And, you know, one of the first things that the city, if something like this is coming on these new agreements, I'm gonna tell them you ought to have not a 90-day, but a 30-day out. I mean, because you can't sit there and hear people are saying, we got an agreement, we can operate under your liquor license, and you don't have one. I'm gonna sue you because you don't have a liquor license. Well, hell, we didn't ask for this election.
Well, you know, and let's talk your opinion that, or fraction thereof, so we're entitled to 5, but now anybody can apply for them, and depending on the makeup of the decision makers, it could become, which changes, this could become a popularity contest. Correct? I mean, somebody's out, that's in business, is now out of business because we want to give it to these people that are going to build the building that you're talking about.
Assuming the people that have applied are a suitable person, which means never convicted of a felony,
And
and have a suitable location.
that's the case, and that would be the case with both applicants.
Is there a statute which allows the city to give preference to somebody that operated under an operating agreement? And I can't find that.
So
So
there's no operating agreements, and
I think anybody can come in and say, I'd like to have all of these hearings held at the same time. I want you to hear what I have to say. And then after you've decided how many licenses you're gonna issue,
when you're limited,
yeah, but after, you could issue less, after you've done
okay, then
that.
somebody's out of business.
Well, but-
You can't issue more though.
But I don't think that the existing operating agreement participants have any special treatment under the statute. I got just as much shot at a liquor license as you do. You have
Yeah.
one, I don't.
I'm operating, you're not, but you could, opinion of the decision makers could give it to you, and I'm out of business.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
wouldn't comment on that, but they could,
What?
yeah, they could, but yes, I agree.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify it as well.
My recommendations are that we look at our operating agreements and we shorten the period of time that we get out. I would like you to share that agreement with the peer has, with the commission. And Darren, I'm going to make sure you get a copy of that peer agreement as well. And I think we should show the other folks that are operating off-sale liquor. And that's just something that they did. So is it just, I believe that you would be wanting to have the city get out of the business to avoid the markup. Is that what the issue is?
Those are the concerns that we had heard.
Can they change the markup percentage?
Yes. other than, can't go over 5% on malt beverage.
You can't go less than that,
No more.
No more than 5% on malt.
but you could go less, and you
No.
could go less on alcohol?
You can go,
Spirits?
you can't go more than 5% on beer. You can do anything you want on spirits.
So it doesn't have to, nothing has to change if the objective is to make the retailers of off sale more competitive, theoretically, maybe more sales tax, you could lower that percentage and nothing has to change,
That's fair.
correct?
That's fair.
Short of resetting the table, yeah. That would be an option to, rather than accidentally shut people's doors or accidentally vote uneducated. Folks didn't know where voting for.
So it's kind of bifurcating it.
Kind of, yeah, kind of.
I don't know if folks need to know, but, how many cities in the state of South Dakota have a municipal liquor license? And I wanna say in the 30s. Sturgis has a municipal liquor store.
Yep.
I mean, Sturgis, okay?
Yeah.
It keeps that city alive, so, Elkton, Sisseton, the list is, there's a ton of them that you'd be blown away by how many municipal liquor licenses there are.
So I called the Department of Revenue and I sat down and met with them. We walked through what my opinions were. They said, you're the only person that's ever called us on how to get out of this deal. Everybody else is saying, how do I get the markup so I can generate money in town? That's just an aside. And I assume that up in Pier, they had some of the conversations and I can't tell if their agreement, that the city got more or got less. Can't tell you.
You wouldn't need an election to lower this percentage? It's
No.
just an administrative,
Could be negotiations with whatever's mutually agreeable.
It would be what the parties agree to as it relates to the markup. Now, again, Pierre just said it's $10,000 for the license. That's what I told you. You could say anything you wanted to add, subject to the minimum. And they've set their contract up that it automatically expires every 2 years. So someone can't come in and say this is a renewal. Here's got it set to design. That's $10,000 a year. Because remember, the old renewal is $500 or $1,500.
so they could give it to somebody else, even though you still have two qualified, good character applicants.
Yeah.
So after 2 years, the makeup has changed as who's making the decision, and I want to give it to my friend. I don't like that guy.
Yeah, I don't, just up in Pier where I spent a lot of time, I don't see them doing a lot more on sale places there. I was surprised that Walmart came in and got a liquor license, the offset.
Offset.
And to be frank with you, I never thought I'd see Casey's get an offset, but they did. I mean,
You're putting in video lottery machines in Casey's on. So,
be happy to answer any questions at any time after this, or I'll stand here all day. Thank you very much.
Thank you for allowing me to ask questions.
Yes. Okay, moving on. Next on the agenda is the appointment of commissioner departments. I'm going to, it's just my recommendation that Commissioner of Public Safety is Jackie Piggers, Public Works is Paul Garbers, Utilities is Chris York, and Finance and Revenue would be Sarah Carlson. And that is to be voted on.
Motion to approve.
The motion, do we have a second?
You're welcome.
Second.
Any questions? Call roll.
Commissioners Carlson.
Aye.
Biggers.
Aye.
Garbers.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Mayor Lundstrom.
Aye. Next is the Canton Municipal Airport AIG grant. Aaron Storm, project engineer with KLJ, has submitted a grant application for the municipal airport. The grant is a split portion of 52%. And you saw the attached summary grant on the board docs. And this is, can I connect it to this one?
Yeah, you can speak to them, they'll have to vote on them.
Yeah, we'll have to vote on it.
Definitely speak to them.
It's also connected with the next agenda item, which is a 48% split. So that,
Those two are stacking on top of each other.
yes, for the grant, and this is for a project for,
Airport master plan.
airport master plan, yes. So, the first one is 52%. Any questions? Somebody?
Yes, I have just kind of throw both of them together, and my question is throwing them both together is, it's the 4 years that I've been on this commission board, is we continue to, and I'm not saying I'm against it, but we continue to accept all these grants. Every time we accept these grants, our hands are tied for another 20 years. So my question is, and that's lack of knowledge of what goes on, is what does the airport board, or what does this town want out of that airport to keep tying our hands for 20 years? What do they want in the first year, in year 1 or year 5, year 10 or year 20? I think I had to ask the question, do we make money or do we lose money? We don't make money, but we don't lose money. Until what?
The airport about breaks even until we start getting into some of these projects.
Okay, let's just say we got FEMA money in 2024. And I see that's on we paid $51,020.50 for airport fence repair. Let's say that fence would have went down, but we wouldn't have got any outside help. Where does that bill get paid from?
Out of city funds eventually, but in this scenario, that fence was insured, and our insurance company paid us the 50-some thousand, well, it was 60, paid us the cost to repair the fence less our deductible. And FEMA required us to run it through our insurance company, and if our insurance company denied the claim, then FEMA would pick it up. But I think FEMA picked up 80%, I think, of the deductible.
So
I still go back to my question, though, what do we want in the big picture of that airport? What do we want? We say we don't make money and we don't lose money, but we have land surrounding the airport that can't be built on because of the airspace restrictions.
Height restrictions.
So we are losing
potential.
potential housing developments. I'm just, like I say, the airport, the FFA is the easiest people to get grant money that is anything that I've seen in 4 years. But I don't know how many,
You're locked in though for 20.
I hate to think what that grant money was if we wanted to get out, that we'd have to pay back.
Everything can be prorated based on the number of years, but I can't remember how many years ago it was, we had like $1.5 million taxiway improvement. So that would be on the mark. So just say for the sake of argument, we've had it for 10 years, that you'd have to pay $750,000 back if the federal government would let you out.
They have to agree to that.
I believe so.
One thing I'm
Again, moving forward, if we're hanging ourselves out there for 20 years, every time we do a grant, shouldn't we think about making some money on that airport instead of breaking even?
So more often than not, we need to have somebody from the airport board here speaking on behalf of the airport. We don't ever hear from the airport board, at least I've never heard from them. And yet it's on one of our agenda items nearly every other meeting.
We don't have nobody here explaining that tonight.
I'd like to make a brief comment. I've looked, it's not on the website who's on the board. It's not on the website when their meetings are, and it's not on the website, their agenda or the summary of their meeting. There's nothing. There's nowhere to find it. I know the manager's there, but there's not even a resource who's on the board on the website.
And I see planes leave or here once in a while, don't know who they are, what they are. The busiest time of the year is when the spray people use it.
There's 2 or 3, I think, that run out of there locally, and I think there's sometimes 1 or more that'll come in beyond that.
Which is all fine and dandy, but if we're gonna have our fingers in it, I think it needs to be more than just a pass-through thing, because we're tying our hands for 20 years.
I know one thing at a bare minimum that I want out of the new master plan is, you know, we have an L-shaped piece of ground for the airport. And the engineer, Aaron Storm, did say that, you know, they had acquired that land in order to have a different runway for when the winds are blowing that direction. Crosswind, but rarely would there be a crosswind of that nature in this area to ever actually justify that runway. But there is, for that non-existent runway, there's also a keep clear zone height restriction area for a runway that doesn't even exist. So at the very least, if nothing else changed, I would want them to update their master plan to no longer be pursuing that crosswind runway, so that we can unencumber some land to the west of the airport, and then possibly even do something different with the ground that we
Oh,
own.
the city owns a piece just west of the storage unit.
Right.
Our hands are tied there too.
It's a good chunk of land that could.
That could create a lot of sales tax dollars.
Yeah.
I just think we need to think more about it instead of just always just, oh, this grant ain't costing us anything, but is it really costing us something? It is.
Opportunity cost, I think, would be.
No, I mean, 4 years, we have never had, I've missed a few meetings, but not very many. We've ever had an airport person stand up and say, this is what we accomplished in the last year.
Like even this money for the master plan, that would also be the kind of money that we'd have to pay back.
I would assume so.
It's not just like
In the
physical improvements.
In the FAA grant.
Could we table it at airport board, or they wanna vote to turn it down?
I'd make a motion to table it until we can have someone from the airport board come and talk to us, to explain it.
Okay,
Second.
okay. Want to roll?
Commissioner Spiggers. Garvers.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Mayor Lindstrom.
Aye. So the next portion is the same.
Yeah.
The next one. So
We need to table that one too.
it has to have a motion in a second.
Again, a motion to table
Okay.
until someone from the airport board.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Call the roll. What?
Sorry. Finish.
That's okay.
I was thinking, and the next item too, after this one, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you'll call roll on
That's
that
a
one.
different deal. Commissioners Garvers.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Biggers.
Aye.
Mayor Lindstrom.
Aye. And the same goes for the
No.
next one on the
The
schedule?
next one's a different item.
Yeah, it is. But, it's the pavement maintenance entitlement transfer.
Obviously, we are required to maintain the pavement has come this year that they are going to do it. The Department of Transportation bids it, and they have done so. They're expecting our cost to do the pavement maintenance, which is crack sealing, to be $145,000. And we get entitlement funds every year, and this agreement is just transferring those title funds to pay for the project.
We pay in full.
I believe so.
It says the city's federal share.
Yes. At the end of the day, you have an airport that has to be maintained by FAA standards, and this is one of the things the FAA says needs to be done.
And this is not a grant, this is just money.
Entitlement funds that are, I'm not exactly sure how all the entitlement fund stuff works.
And this is something we would have to pay for regardless.
Yes.
We have to do regardless, yeah.
Yeah. Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second. Is there any questions? I'm gonna call roll.
Commissioners York,
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Biggers,
Aye.
Garbers,
I,
Mayor Lundstrom.
Aye. Okay, next on the agenda is the cadet program. Canton Fire Department is looking to provide operational practices and skills for any high school student to prepare them to become regular firefighters in the volunteer fire department. And we have an attachment that was on the board docs to explain this cadet program. Did you want to come up and talk at all?
I can,
Devin Chalk, Assistant Chief of the Fire Department. We've been trying for numerous years. This has been a working project for probably 6-7 years, I think, at least now. Finally came to fruition. We got some documents from Pier. That's where the standard came from. Larry helped us get it so the legalese was a lot better on it.
These in the insurance company.
Yep, make insurance company happy. We tweaked it a bit to make it a little bit more strict, actually. Pier has a 14-year-old age limit. We didn't feel that that was actually a safe thing. We felt they'd be a little bit more mature at 16, kind of heading into that junior year type thing and the sophomore year. When it comes down to the gist of it, we're trying to use it, one, as a recruiting goal for us. Our numbers are very short. We only have 19 members that actually live in town. We have one member that lives in Renner but happens to work in town, but his employer doesn't let him leave work right now for fire calls. He will let him leave, but he has to punch out and doesn't get paid, so it's money out of his pocket on top of everything. So we're hoping to, within a couple of years here, this will actually help us get some numbers into the department to help get us up. We are a young department. We look out there. We do have quite a few guys that have less than 6 years, but all of the leadership has 13 or more years. As we step down, we want to make sure that there's somebody there to fill the ranks of the rest of the guys as the next batch of guys set up in the leadership roles. We don't get a lot of interest anymore. We maybe pull 4 or 5 apps a year tops out of the town. Most of those, I can't remember the last time we actually didn't take somebody on. Most of them know that we get in, don't last a year. It's some time. It's time away from family, time away from other things. So they realize it's a little bit more of a commitment than they thought, which is totally cool. We understand. You kind of go into it blind a little bit. So we're hoping this will get them what they see, what they're going to be getting into. And then once they progress through the program, they've got a leg up to the department. It's pretty much, they come to the department and say, hey, I'm 18. I'd like to be a full member now. We bring them on. They can get certified up to level 1 firefighter right away while they're still in the cadet program. Basically, that means, though, that they are limited to certain things they can do. Can't do, go into a structure, things like that, the more hazardous stuff. And we wouldn't be letting our guys do anything until they're 18 on that anyways. Cadet program will carry them up to, I believe, 20, age of 20. To kind of let them fill it out a little bit more, especially if you get a gentleman or a girl that joins at their senior year and they're still feeling it out. They're sticking around home, going to school, local, Sioux Falls, something like that, feeling it out, great. If they don't come and stay with us, but the fire service is something they want to do, we put the work into them, but it's helping another community out too, wherever they go. I was talking with the chief from T. We had a Lincoln County Chiefs meeting last week, and I mean, they've had some of their guys go to Sioux Falls. And I think had one that is a full-time wildland guy down in Arizona. So it may not help our community, but it's gonna help another one too. And you know, if we can get one or two a year that stick around, that just helps us out immensely because we're at half strength. The city authorizes 40 and we're at 20.
How soon would you initiate this?
I had talking to the superintendent. If this passes through, he's willing to let us set up a table starting tomorrow. Our department has already agreed to it, so the commission agrees to it, and we roll forward. That way we can roll it out to the kids here. We got some time to think about it, take it home to the parents, discuss it, and hopefully during the summer here is a perfect time to get some kids rolling in it. It's a great time of year to do it. They'll have their own meeting night, actually. It's kind of the plan. They'll come to us then after their meeting. Any questions or concerns? They're going to have their own leadership roles as they progress. Initially, it'll just be fire department officers in charge of them, but they will have their own internal leadership eventually once we get enough kids that have the time in and teach them some responsibility, leadership, things like that. So overall, I think it should be good for the community in general, especially for the kids. And it helps us out. We get to have fun. We're all big kids down there anyway, so.
I would think you'd somehow use Lake Area in their fire program.
Lake area is one of the resources we can use. Most of it here, what they're doing with a lot of these kids for the cadet programs, like for us in general, they're not really going to be able to do much for at least 6 months. That's 6 months of meetings. There's going to be, basically we're almost treating it like a sporting program too.
Sure.
There's grade requirements, attendance requirements, things like that. Employers have to sign off on it. For the kids that have the summer jobs, they have to be okay to leave work for it. Kids will not be allowed to carry pagers at school. We do have our paging app, but we're not going to put them into that system as far as a complete entry. We don't, it overrides your phone. If it's on silent, it will override it. And you don't want that going off in school. So that part will be shut off. We may turn it on in summer for them, but then we'll disable that during the school year, obviously. So, but yeah, with Lake Area, we haven't reached out to them too much on anything. I've heard some of the stuff that they're able to do. We're basically going to do what Worthing is doing, Harrisburg is doing, T is doing, and kind of keep everything in-house. Someday we'd love to link up with them for something like that, once if we can get it big enough. It'll probably be after my time. But.
Okay, do any of you have any questions for Devin?
No. All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. So I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Your motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, you can call roll.
Commissioners Carlson,
Aye.
Biggers.
Aye.
Garvers.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Mayor Lindstrom.
Aye. Okay, next on the agenda is Canton TIF plan.
This first appeared in front of the planning and zoning where they had a public hearing, and this step here is just a normal vote for you all. And Toby Morris here is a Colliers and here to explain it.
Thanks, Andrew, members of the commission. Toby Morris, I've worked with multiple TIF plans throughout the state. What you have before you is an economic development tool. We put this together to help assist with the recruitment of a developer in your project out there east of town. I know there's a few bumps in the road that have happened, but one thing I want to stress about this plan is this is not assigned to any developers, not assigned to the economic development group, but rather what it is, it's an incentive tool for you to help complete your housing program where you did receive the state of South Dakota through that housing grant funds. So what we did is we compiled all the costs that had currently been bid out. We put together a set of forecasts of projections. There's a couple things about these TIFs that I should first and foremost mention, that it is assigned as what we consider workforce housing. That means it's neutral to the school's general fund. There's a lot of these TIFs that are passed throughout the state. We work on multiples. And again, especially with the housing, is such a critical need within the state at this point. When you have interest rates as high as they are, when you have a state of inflation, we have the tariffs, every tool helps when it comes to making sure that you can recruit a developer to come to town and help assist them carry out what your goals have been through the economic development group. I know Mayor has spoken quite a bit to your group here over about the past 4 to 6 months. Development, especially raw development, is tremendously difficult. It's tremendously lot of liability goes in there. And so it's something that has to take with steps. And what this TIF plan does is it helps reduce some of that liability. It's basically a capture of increment of property tax that are paid. It's not a property tax break by any means, but rather that increment that goes in, it is then used to offset infrastructure costs. Things that it does not offset, even though it's legal, but of all the TIF plans we put together, there's no developer fees. Really try to stay away from the soft costs, but at the same time, trying to help offset any of those infrastructure costs. When you have a workforce housing TIF, the statute says you have to sell that house under the first-time home buyer, which is $385,000. It seems high, but in today's world with inflation, we're seeing a lot of infrastructure homes, right at that 360 to 385. So ultimately, the end user, which is that homeowner, they're receiving it because that infrastructure has been offset by that developer. And so there's a few moving pieces when we talk about these TIFs. I can gladly take questions. I think this is the second one that you've done. I know when we did some research, at first we couldn't find one. I believe the first one was in your industrial park that proved to be very successful. I think that was about 15 or 18 years ago.
It's done now.
Yeah, it's been dissolved. It served its purpose. Again, these cannot go any more than 20 years or until all obligations have been paid, whichever comes sooner. So creating it today, it would go out to the year 2045. But again, this is your tool. It's only the city can assign it. We would do something with a developer agreement at that time. But what happens a lot with developers is they look at communities and they go, okay, how tough is that community going to be to work with? A lot of times TIFs can be misunderstood. Maybe sometimes they have a little bit of drama. But I feel with this plan, what this does is it keeps the city a bit in the driver's seat. It gives you a tool to go out and to recruit that developer to come in and to finish the plans that have been started. A lot of times, we've been working on this, I think Andrew and Kyle, I think we talked about it probably 2, maybe 3 months ago. I know the development group. So you're ahead of the game by being able to say you can assign it, then it'd just be the magic work of your city attorney, Larry. We work with a developer agreement on what the conditions may be. So this is broad, meant to be broad. If I was doing it for a developer, it'd be very narrow in scope, but being that the city is the one that could pass this on, I wanted to make certain that you guys had every opportunity to assist with any kind of development that may come forward. I can get very specific into this, by no means that I want to rush through it, and we can go through any section that you'd like, but that's really the Reader's Digest version of what you have in front of you at this time.
Toby, for this TIF to be effective, the city's new construction property tax abatement would have to be waived.
It'd be recommended, yes, because you have a mix of commercial in there. Each purchase agreement, I think we would help advise you if it's maybe a large retailer that's coming in and providing sales tax. We know cities live and die by sales tax, so that might be something you forego on the property tax. Each lot would be, I guess, up to your own discretion.
Right. But the more that we were to forgive on property tax on the front end, the less this TIF
Correct,
kicks off.
correct. It's counterproductive.
Any question?
Would it be, how do you incentivize folks to come when you have a TIF? I was one of those that received a 5-year abatement, and it was obviously a positive. Now you take that away, am I gonna look that direction?
Was that on commercial?
No, residential.
Residential? So the incentive is the infrastructure's in, the road, water, the sewer, the lots are complete, they're ready to go, and that's gonna be reflected in the lot price. And so your master developer, whoever would come in, would basically forego that right through that purchase option, because you're already receiving the benefit of that infrastructure at a reduced price through the, I think we had it estimated about 7 million in here.
So the lots are at a discounted price, we're not selling them at market value, right?
Ultimately, the house has to remain 385,000 or
Sure,
less,
sure.
so.
Or less.
Or less. So if the lot's 100,000, the house better only be 285.
Right.
But, a $385,000 house is generally, maybe 1,200 square feet. It doesn't take much to spend 385 anymore. And what the biggest thing this does is it helps alleviate some of the risk for that developer coming in. And that's the main thing right now, when you're looking at rates over 7%. Your housing study was very unique. Yes, there is a demand. Is there a demand for the full 80 lots? You're probably looking, anywhere from 8 to 10 years before it could be fully built out. So the developer's really not making their money until about the last 15, 20 lots, because you got to cover that 7% minimum. That's a big risk. We have sent this to Department of Revenue. It has been classified with them. We take care of everything. So what we'll do is, providing passage tonight, we put together a full transcript. The only thing left that would be with this would be a developer's agreement. But then again, that comes back to the city itself on what you're using to entice a developer to come in to finish the lots. So in a way, you're playing the role of developer without the risk, the way I like it. Because there is no risk on this, and you are nothing more than a conduit to pass that increment on to the developer. So you're not taking out any debt. It's just your obligation to pass on whatever that increment may be. If it's 100,000 in year 3, if it's 10,000, if it's 500. I hope it's 500, because that means homes have come about.
Toby, can you explain the annually renewing portion of this TIF and how that worked around the city's debt capacity?
Correct. So in the state, we have our constitutional debt, and I went round and round with legislative audit for years, and then it finally dawned on me, because we do a lot of work for the state of South Dakota, and the state of South Dakota actually has a $100,000 constitutional debt of all things. Well, that might have been great in 1895, but it doesn't apply here. So what we did is we took the verbiage of what's considered an annual appropriation that's been reviewed by several bond councils from out of state, in state, and that's where we put the language in here. What essentially happens is every year when you approve the budget, within that budget, Kyle keeps track of what's come in from the TIF, what's obligated. It would be part of that. So our friends at Legislative Audit now recognize that it does not count towards your constitutional debt. Even though the developer's taken out the money or taken out the debt, it was still considered an obligation. So this will not hamper any kind of future capital outlay plans that would be applicable to constitutional debt.
So this ground is owned by the CEDC, not the city, right?
Correct.
The city's given permission to do this to, because we're not gonna pick the developer.
You would not, but you have a say in what you pass on. I mean, in a lot of ways, you can sit from the side, but you're still the armchair quarterback in a way. This is a tool for the development group to recruit, that the city is a partner without the liability. Does that help?
Any other questions for Toby? No? Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thanks, Toby.
And your recommendation?
I've seen this be a very, very valuable tool to get development going. Not just a specific development, but development in general, to get developers to, and home builders alike to pay attention to community, to know that this community or as a city or you want development. You use it for a number of developments. You treat it differently with each development depending on the nature of the development. And then you slowly meter it off as things kind of get rolling on its own.
Okay. Phil?
We had one in the industrial park and it's been paid off.
Yes,
Yes.
that was held by the county.
Yeah.
And then the other one was with Old Main.
Old Main years ago. I think that one was 92 or 94, Larry. Before my time here.
So, any discussion with you?
I guess about, because of my development, I'm gonna abstain from voting.
Any motion and second first?
I'll make a motion to approve tax increment District 2 plan.
Second.
Motion and second. Okay, we'll call roll.
Commissioner Spiggers.
Aye.
Garvers.
Abstain.
York.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Mayor Lundstrom.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Last thing on the agenda is the personal manual policy for holidays. And the personal manual policy 7-11 holidays has been updated to include June 19th, which is Juneteenth. That was proclaimed a federal holiday on June 17th of 2020. And I would like a motion and a second to update, to approve putting this holiday in our manual.
What appeared in your agenda also had administrative holidays.
Oh, yeah.
So to be clear, depending on what you're interested in, there are two components here, administrative holidays and Juneteenth. By all means, you can separate the two. But also to just some other questions from commissioners prior to the meeting, what was also included in your packet looked almost like the entirety of section 7.11. It was not. So what was not included in there was a personal floating day. That is still going to be retained in the section 7.11.
So we're voting on if we want to put it in here, or what are we actually voting on?
Voting on whether or not you want Juneteenth, part one, part two, whether or not you would want to recognize the governor and the president's administrative holidays.
So looking at this, we're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 holidays currently.
Sounds right.
but they are not all federal holidays.
I would have liked to have seen which ones are, yeah, I'm trying to figure it out on my own, which ones are federal holidays, which ones are. Because I didn't realize because we just did the Eastern one, I was like, oh, yeah, that's a religious holiday, you know, so. And this was passed at January 17th of 2020. And we're talking about 2025.
Because currently we do not
We got
allow for the
recognized
state.
Juneteenth.
Federal holidays, New Year's Day is a federal holiday. Birthday of Martin Luther King Jr., Washington's birthday, which is President's Day, Memorial Day,
Yeah.
Juneteenth, Independence Day, Labor Day, Columbus Day, South Dakota Native American Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, and Christmas.
We do get 10. 11.
If we approve it.
11 if we approve this one.
So there is some overlap between federal and religious there.
I think in the agenda it included the Friday after Thanksgiving. You may want to double check it.
Yeah, it does
is
say Friday in the.
Fourth
yeah.
Thursday and Friday in November.
But Friday wouldn't be a federal holiday,
No, but
Friday
I'm
was-
saying it was
But it is
included in
on
your
there.
agenda.
But it is on there.
but it's on there, yeah.
I guess I just didn't like the portion of we're removing the words will be at the discretion of the city commission. It's basically removing the city commission's ability to decide on those non-working holidays. I just don't feel like that's necessary to remove the discretion of the city commission to decide those things.
I don't want to cut discussion short if I want to discuss it, but I'd make a motion not to approve it at this time.
The Juneteenth or all of it as a whole.
Juneteenth.
But we open the discussion on the administrative holidays?
I'm open to discuss anything.
I'd make a substitute motion to table this in its entirety.
I'm okay with that.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table this issue. Any other questions? Wanna call roll?
Commissioners Garbers,
Aye.
York,
Aye.
Carlson,
Aye.
Figurs.
Aye.
Mayor Lundstrom.
No,
So that ends everything that's on the agenda. We'll have commissioner dialogue now. Oh, wait,
Larry had asked for an executive.
yeah, but do we
We'll do
want
that,
to?
yeah.
Commissioner
We'll do dialogue first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chris?
Real quick, I seen the firefighter cadet program and I applaud them for that. I would love to see the police department come up here and do the Explorer program. I was an Explorer and I would love to see Canton go that route to get some interest in kids. I believe Southeast Tech has a program, so, yeah, absolutely pat on the back, the fire department can get that cadet back program running. We obviously have a shortfall in volunteer, and then that is up to a lot of employers as well. I mean, folks leave town at 6 o'clock every morning and aren't able to get back here to fight fires. Face it, that's the rock and a hard place we're up against. So
shout out to the fire department for getting that going, and we'd love to see Corbin get his department in here and get that going.
Anything else?
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Paul?
This is kind of a weird thing, but, I put a lot of things in the UPS box that we have, down by the Garden of Eden. And sometimes people put packages in there that don't actually fit, and so the thing doesn't close. More just for safety reasons, people should take those to the post office, cause they will accept them. And, cause people can walk off with those packages if they don't fit. I mean, I'm not saying anyone would, but kids might think it's fun, and then you're gonna be out a return if you're returning something, or have to, the package isn't gonna get to someone, so just kind of a heads up for people like to think about trying to shove something into a box that doesn't fit isn't always the best approach.
Good point. Thank you. I don't have anything. Do you? Andrew?
I don't think so.
Kyle? Okay, then I'm gonna call for an executive session under codified law, 1-25-2.
Motion. Bracket 3,
Pardon?
bracket 3.
3.
which is legal. That was Commissioner Garber's motion, Commissioner Pigner second.
I'll call roll.
Commissioners Piggers,
Aye.
Garbers,
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Carlson,
Hi.
Mayor Lundstrom.
Okay.
So that we've been watching that
All night. I'm so.
I think it got
Not yet.
pretty early on.
I just about did it there.
It happens every time, that's what I'm
I
saying,
know
that's why I came down
him
here.
for a year, so I mean, Tyler's been here for 5
Not
years, so I always know him. I just about said Larson, I'm like, no, that ain't right. So you about got it.
Well, I said Carl's,